r/ask Reddit. What is a dirty business tactic that you know and everyone should be aware of it? If you're buying a used car and it's parked over a puddle, they don't want you to look underneath. Oh, that's ducking a disgustingly dirty move. Ducking greasy. Mattress stores that have the find it anywhere else for cheaper. You get your money back. Deal contract with the manufacturer to make the exact same model of bed, but with a model name specific to that store, so nobody can ever cash in on that deal. Best Buy does this as well to avoid price matching. You'll notice a B or something at the end of the product number, which makes it a different product. Mattress stores, the gurus of sleazy tactics. Not sure if this fits, but if you are offered a raise for taking on new responsibilities, get it in writing. Just learned that the hard way. When finding a home for your elderly parents, set up an appointment but come in a few minutes early and say, "Don't ask if you can walk around for a quick look." The receptionist likely won't refuse you, and the salesperson won't be ready for you. These places like to show you only the stuff they want you to see when being led around by a salesperson. Chat with a resident or a staff member, they'll be the most honest with you. I did exactly this when looking for daycare for my kids. Showed up randomly one morning and asked if I could look around, without going into any rooms, just from the hallway. Yes, I told them why I was there. Yes, they took down my ID. Yes, I agreed to have one of their staff walk with me. And yes, I did ask the room staff questions on my rounds. I also did this while looking for a daycare. I walked in on one of the staff screaming at a room full of toddlers. Needless to say, I didn't send my kid there, and I was happy to see that they recently went out of business. In Nova Scotia, Canada, severance pay is paid on the average of your last 30 days of pay. This means that some companies will actually reduce your hours to minimum your last month with them if they are going to lay you off. Happened to me wife. She worked for this company for 5 years, worked 35 plus hours per week. Suddenly she wasn't getting shifts. Boom. Layoff notice. Happened to other folks too. Call the labor board. IDK about in Nova Scotia, but here in Ontario that's illegal. Even if she quit because she wasn't getting enough hours due to them reducing it, she'd still be entitled to pay. They cannot reduce your hours by more than a certain percent each week. Can't remember the percent. Can tell you I have fought this and won. This is known as constructive dismissal, where the terms of your employment change so drastically that the labor board considers it equivalent to being fired. You should be entitled to employment benefits based on the hours prior to your constructive dismissal. Offering insurance on anything that does not have the potential to be financially debilitating. Want to insure your DVD rental? Duck off. Want to insure your Lego set? Lady, if the Lego truck breaks, I'll just build it again. You should get the insurance. Then a few months later send pictures of the crash complete with blood on the driver's side door, and repair estimates from no less than 3 certified Lego mechanics. And don't forget to take down the Lego insurance information from the driver of the Lego spaceship that hit your truck. The matter might have to be settled in court. Some stores increase the price of a product and then put it on sale by a percentage of the fake higher price. Yep, problem with this is when J.C. Penney's tried to do away with this system. They failed, and failed hard. They lost millions of dollars and customers absurdly quick, in an effort to be honest with the consumer. Like how all Hobby Lobby furniture is 50% off all the time. It's Hobby Lobby brand. That's not a sale. That's the price. I just saw this at Lowe's. I looked at a grill that was $159. I went back to buy it, and it was $149 but said the original price was $179. I still got it $10 cheaper, but it definitely wasn't as good of a sale as they made it out to be. As a cashier at Lowe's, I know exactly which grill you're talking about. I've watched the price of that fluctuate every week since April. It really all depends on how the sales were the previous week. I worked in the collections department of Discover Card for a while. One thing they did, maybe still do, to lure customers to them is offer 0% APR for the first year. People would jump on this and transfer all their debt onto their new Discover Card, and then the company would conveniently not send the first month's bill. In the fine print of the agreement, it states that if you miss even one payment in that first year, your APR will jump to 29.95%. Half of my calls were to these new customers who would then proceed to throw a fit because they didn't ever get the bill, and I had to explain to them that it was their job to know when the bill was due, and sending one was just a courtesy extended by the company. I hated that job. It ate away at my soul. In the US, the Federal Card Act in 2010 made it a requirement to send a bill 21 days before the due date. If this was after that, they weren't just being slimy but straight up illegal. This happened to me with my student loans. Didn't get a bill until my university financial aid contacted me to inform me that I was in default. This was 6 months after I called the same office asking them to connect me with the company that I needed to pay, and them telling me not to worry, that company would contact me when it was time. Ruined my credit score since it was the only debt I had at the time. We have many more clients interested in this limited offer. I've actually said then why do you need me in response to this a few times. Sometimes I get a stammering UHH. Well, YC, I'm trying to help you in response. But one time the dude just laughed and said okay, you got me. The second guy would have my buttons by sheer virtue of not insulting my intelligence any longer. Or was that his ploy all along? It might very well have been his ploy all along. And if so, I'd probably have to say okay, you got me, right back at him. Whack up cheaple. Yay, sense of urgency is annoying. When moving out of a rental apartment house, make sure to take lots of pictures and ask the owner/landlord to do a walkthrough with you. Video the walkthrough. That way if they do not give you all your deposit back, you have something to take to court versus a he said which you generally lose. When you turn in cable internet equipment, make sure to get a full receipt showing what they took and on the date it was received. Scan this and email to a couple different email accounts. Comcast and others are bad about losing the equipment a couple years later, after you forget, and then billing you. Sire. A local lawn maintenance business takes advantage of unsuspecting customers in 3 ways. On monthly bills, they double the state tax. Instead of being, say, 6%, it'll actually be 12%. If you check the math, without discussing it with homeowners, they charge double for double cuts when the grass is a little taller in areas than usual. So, if you had agreed to pay $50 per mowing, the monthly bill says $100 for each visit. They never ask, they just do it and charge double. In most cases, it's just a small patch of the yard that has taller grass, not the entire thing. They're supposed to mow once per week, but without telling customers first, they start mowing every 5 days, which means they get to charge for more mowing visits per month than necessary. Who the duck would not ask why the bill was double? If someone tried to charge me double for the grass being taller, I'd laugh in their face. Old people. The closing down sale in the shop that never closes down. It's just in closing down sale mode continuously. I'm amazed shops are allowed to get away with this. Closing down sale until 5 PM. Grand reopening sale tomorrow at 9 AM. I live, I die, I live again. The 3-tiered pricing approach, especially for things like roofing or basement waterproofing. The contractor starts with a ridiculously high-priced quote for way more stuff than you asked for, steps down to a more moderate quote of what you wanted with a few bells and whistles. Then the third quote is for what you requested. This gives you the illusion of choice and reduces sticker shock, because although your requested absolute minimum service is really expensive, it's only half the cost of their recommended repairs. Petco will sell you non-aquatic plants specifically for your aquarium that will poison everything in the tank. Petco is horrendous. One of the few times I've ever called a corporate office was when my wife and I walked into a Petco and noticed a tank full of rats were lying in an inch of water from a broken water bottle. We told 2 staff members who barely even acknowledged we'd spoken. The third employee was the woman at checkout, who quietly told us we should call their corporate. She seemed to be the only one who cared, including the person on the phone. An older fellow I know had a bodega and he'd put a can of cream corn on the counter by the register. This was some time ago, so the van had a price tag of 17 cents. He sold that can of cream corn to everyone who bought anything there. If they realized they were paying too much, he'd just say he thought that was their can of corn. Most people didn't notice though, and he sold that same can of cream corn maybe 20 times a day. That seems like a lot of work for $3. My elementary school would host a fun day every year, where there were booths, games, activities, etc. They'd get the kids to help out with various small tasks too. One year when I was about 9, my task was to help sell the little potted geraniums. 25 cents each. Well, no one was buying any of them. So I had a brilliant idea. I made a new sign that said buy one for $1. Get 3 free. Those little geraniums sold like hotcakes after that. I was so proud of myself I told the principal. He did not approve, though he let me do it anyway. It's a wonder I didn't turn into a little Gordon Gekko. Probably only the boneritis kept it in check. If someone starts trying to trade away all their sheep because they have so much of it while they've been sitting on a development card for half the game, do not trade. In high-end IT, vendors will often go dark in the months before a service contract renewal or infrastructure refresh is needed. The idea behind this is that the customer is forced to come to them, or they can come to the customer with little enough time to complete the refresh that they are either forced to make a purchase on bad footing for price negotiations or renew service agreements for an additional year at a higher rate while migrating to new gear. I waited tables in a restaurant and one time I decided to pour a cup of soup into an empty bowl. A bowl of soup costs a good bit more than a cup of soup at the restaurant. The cup filled up the bowl to the top. Yeah, you see this a lot. I'm always suspicious when different sizes come with changes in width versus height instead of both. In Canada, chains have to put calorie counts on menus now, which I love because you can compare the difference in size versus price by looking at the calorie difference of the same product. In France, it's hard to fire or lay off people, so when big companies need to clean house a bit, they move the office to a new location quite distant from the current one. In the process, they reduce the office size from 50,000 seats to 30,000 because they've estimated that amount of people will resign rather than endure a 4 hours commute. But officially totally you still have your job if you want. We are not laying you off, but I need you in the office every day. Or you could resign if you don't like the new location. Nestle did that and apparently it's fairly common now for multinationals around Paris. I suspect they end up keeping a huge amount of dead wood, while valuable employees who can easily find another job in the same area do so. Seems really dumb. Unless you just desperately need to trim employees and you don't care about quality. Dish Network's door-to-door salesman will tell you that it's fine to use your parents' name and social security number for your account if your credit prevents you from getting service. This is not okay. It's identity theft. Fake reviews. I worked for a startup that had a sleazy CEO and got most, if not all, of their business by fake Yelp, Google, Glassdoor and other review sites in our industry. CEO was a compulsive liar and had no morals. Side note, I left the company and shit went straight downhill as it was a house of cards anyway and I had a key position. The CEO ended up calling his business partner of 3 years and telling him that all the money was gone and he is leaving the country forever. Then didn't leave. He still has the company open with a much smaller staff and can only imagine what he is saying to keep it afloat. Okay, done with the rant. It is easy to see fake reviews now since they are usually a bit more eccentric and polished and I have lost all faith in them. Reviews in general are shit. They tend to be filled with either a bunch of fake good reviews or raving reviews from insane customers. When my grandmother was in the hospital, her landscaper and handyman both contacted me to tell me she hadn't paid them and they'd been trying to reach her and on and on. I'd already paid both bills from her account and when I questioned them, they remembered real quick. At Home Depot and Lowe's there are cacti with plastic flowers glued onto them. A friend of mine had a little cactus he showed me. He was so proud of his green thumb. He bragged how it had been blooming for over a year. I took a close look at it and told him it was a fake flower glued on there. He was pretty disappointed. I know a guy who does pest control who specializes in raccoon removal. He takes the raccoons from one house in one neighborhood, then takes and releases it in another neighborhood, then waits for the people there to reach out to him to remove the raccoon from their home. Sounds like the raccoon is the mastermind behind this. Yelp is an extortion ring. As a business owner I can tell you this is totally true. The number of professional reviews are insane. If a business will not advertise with them, they send in a person to do a bad review and then try to charge you to make it go away so you can maintain your rating. If you're buying a used car, or any car for that matter, the check engine light should temporarily come on when you start the vehicle. If it doesn't, the dash has been tampered with to mask a potential issue. Mechanics and other car servicing places will often put many additional tasks replacements on your bill or imply that you should do things immediately, while many of their recommendations are things to keep in mind. Often the tasks they are talking about are not immediately necessary and can be put off for a while before there is an issue. This in no means is me saying that you shouldn't regularly take your car for servicing. When I worked at H&M, we used to do some sneaky stuff with setting up the mannequins' displays. Whenever we had a supply of shirts that were really ugly and weren't selling well, we'd put the ugly item on the mannequin, and it would sell out very quickly. This isn't necessarily the dirtiest trick, but it worked pretty well for pushing really ugly clothes. I was a waitress at a family-owned restaurant that paid me 10 cents more than the minimum wage. They were able to require me to turn over all tips that I never saw again because they paid me over minimum wage. I think this is technically legal, but sleazy nonetheless. I made really great tips and it was hard turning the money over. It's also pretty deceptive to the customer, who thinks their money is going to the wait staff, not the restaurant. That was 100% illegal in most jurisdictions. Managers are generally not allowed to take even a percentage of tips, let alone all of them. The higher priced items like prime rib and seafood is typically at the end of the buffet line, and cheaper, more filling options like bread and mashed potatoes are at the front. They hope you fill up your plate space, stomach space by the time you get to the high ticket items. When dealing with a salesperson, they will wait for a third hard no before ending their sales pitch. I was just today reminded of how nice it is that Finnish salespeople are typically Finnish. 15 seconds into the sales pitch, I say thanks but no thanks, and her answer is that's alright, have a nice day, every single time. Finns just can't market. Fine by me. Jacking Google business pages. Basically, if a Google business listing isn't claimed and controlled by a competing company can weasel their way in and direct people to their business by, say, changing the phone number. There was an article recently about how drug counselors in the Philadelphia area had it happen to them. Their listing phone number was changed to an 800 number, which directed callers to an inpatient rehab facility in Florida. It was discovered when one of these counselors started noticing his patients suddenly not showing up. He called one of them and found out he was at this facility in Florida. People lie about salary, starting pay, raises, etc. all the time. Learn to play hardball. For a multi-million-dollar company, another $10 20k is nothing. My office had a lockdown on raises over 3%, and going into an annual review I learned that my boss had lied and underpaid me for the starting position. He claimed they had a $60,000 budget for the position and couldn't exceed it. I found out the last person in the job got paid $75,000, so I got an offer from a competitor for over double my current pay. Knew they couldn't afford to lose me with the amount of work coming in, and slid my offer letter over to my boss during the review. They matched the offer, gave me a $10,000 bonus up front, and even cut me into a percentage of a business line. The meeting was awkward as hell, and it was difficult to do, but it's business. I work with a lot of different body shops, and in my area the big thing to do is to enhance the damage to customers' cars. I don't mean they try and negotiate harder. I mean they actively create more damage to previously undamaged panels, usually in ways that don't affect the function and are hidden to the customer, in order to get the insurance company to pay them more money. In my area, while not every shop does this, I would say the honest ones are the minority, and it screws the customer over in the long run. The shop might promise that they will save you your deductible, but in the end you end up with a car that has unrepaired damage, or you have to pay out of pocket if the insurance company catches the shop enhancing. And the sad thing is there is almost no way to know which shops do this when you pick a shop. Some companies on Amazon will offer to refund your purchase of their item on PayPal if you give them a good review. That way it still looks like a verified purchase through Amazon. Always count every single note when exchanging currency. It's so easy for vendors, particularly smaller ones, to short bills from a stack of 100 or 1000 and claim innocence when, if, called out on it. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.